Politics have become ridiculous. We have non-stop arguments over who is right in this election season, and everything just seems like we aren't getting anywhere in society. I mean, all it is finger pointing at whose fault it is. And it's the reason why I hate modern politics. And I'm going to give you the reasons why, and a lot will seem repetitive and the same, but bear with me. The first reason is the crony politicians. These are people who will throw you under a bus to make a point pushing their agenda. You've seen it this entire time pushing stimulus packages. And if you think your party hasn't done it, I got some news for you. And they have a terrible refusal to compromise. You know, there are some people who are genuine, who try to meet in the middle, but many of them will use things like, well, let's just say COVID, to get things that they usually couldn't get through during a time without something like a pandemic, so their agenda can be met, whether that agenda is right or wrong for the American people. The second reason is the biased news organizations. You know, the worst ones are, of course, the legacy media, who act on bias. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, you name the news organization. They're opinion talking heads who act as objective journalists. And that is very bad for people, because you have people spouting their opinion, stating it as fact, when many times the facts aren't out and these opinions that they have given are wrong. But by the time they've gotten it into the heads of their followers, the damage has been done. You know, you also see this with internet news, which is something that has been rising up, and I do think it's a good thing. It does battle the legacy media, but many of these people are doing the same thing on another level. A good example is the Young Turks. Although I am going to give props to the honest ones, they're usually conservative or libertarian, but if you do know some that are on the left side of politics, please leave them down in the comments below, because it's always good to get good, honest opinions. The people I can think of are like the Daily Wire. They say, hey, we are the largest conservative news. Steven Crowder, he's honest that he's a conservative. The Liberal Hive Mind, he himself is a moderate, but frequently is covering the conservative side of politics. Well, the liberal side from the conservative viewpoint. Styx Hexenhammer 666, he's a libertarian, and he is very honest about being a libertarian. So props where it's due. There's plenty of others, but those are just a few. This doesn't override the damage done by many of these other outlets. The biggest thing that has come from all this is my third point: division among citizens. We have an I'm right, you're wrong, now do what I want mentality, with no room for compromise. And many of it is because of the politicians we follow and the news organizations we follow. You know, we've had this ideas of, oh, you're a libtard, you're a snowflake, you're a Nazi, a white supremacist. You're all these things if you don't agree with me. And in many cases, this has caused violence. And I don't think violence based on political ideology is ever justified. The only time it's ever justified is if someone is violently attacking you. You know, common sense. And it's a very sad thing. I really wish this division wasn't there. I wish that there was people just having open exchanges of ideas and knowing that, you know, I may not turn them to my side and they might turn me to theirs, but having those conversations. But I'll get on that later. So what can we do to change these things? Because these three are the biggest things I can think of, and I know there's plenty more, and if you have any, leave them down in the comments below. But I think the first thing we can do is stop voting for people who don't compromise or try to work with the other side. Do not vote for those crony politicians who do the same thing over and over again. Just want to push an agenda and ignore the other side and then call them the bad guys when they don't want to do exactly what you do, but you won't try and meet them in the middle or give any ground. This type of toxicity in politics has no place in our modern society. Another thing, make sure you always fact check politicians when they go and talk to people on the news or even just post things on their own personal social media. Make sure you really make sure they're telling you the truth, because a lot of them are full of shit, just to put it bluntly. And you should really make sure they aren't screwing with you just to keep you on their side. Another thing, we need to take the media with a grain of salt. Don't fully believe everything one news organization tells you. That's exactly what they want. They want you to only listen to them and be part of an echo chamber where you only repeat what CNN says. You only repeat what Fox says. Oh, I get all my news from the Young Turks and Steven Crowder. Okay, probably one or the other. And you're not checking to make sure they're right. Hold them accountable for when they give you wrong facts. I would say the best way to do it is listen to news sources you may not agree with, or find ones as neutral as possible. Of course, still look up the sources and fact check and get all the facts before making a judgment on the story. Be willing to change your opinion on the story as more information comes out, because that is critical. Because there's still many people who are banking on things that we knew right at the beginning of a story and not as more information came out. I think the last thing we can do is listen to people you don't agree with. And I'm not talking from the news or politicians. I'm talking personally. Because the idea that they're conservative, liberal, so I refuse to hear them because they're stupid, immoral, because they're conservative, liberal, is ridiculous. We need to have a free exchange of ideas, because you're probably wrong on some things. I'm probably wrong on some things. That's how it is. No one knows everything. If you're continually not growing and changing your opinion, then you have put yourself in a box because you refuse to change. We need to have a free exchange of ideas, because it's not just some conservative ideological dogma that we need to just be able to talk about these things everywhere, especially on let's say college campuses. It's just a common sense on building a free thinking society. And that's what we need. Don't remove people from your life because you don't agree with them politically. I've heard of some people doing that. Of course, most recently was someone on CNN, what's his name, Don Lemon. But there's some people even in personal lives who'll do that. They'll cut off people because they don't agree with them politically, and that is going to be more hurtful for you, especially if they're willing to listen to other people, but you aren't. It's going to hurt you more than anything, because it's not going to allow you to grow. And there's always times to put political ideology aside when you're with those people. And there's times when you have those healthy discussions. And by healthy, I mean don't belittle or accuse them due to their beliefs. Just because they may have this conservative viewpoint that you think is bad, it doesn't mean that they're this bad thing. Just because they have this liberal viewpoint you may not have, doesn't mean they're this other bad thing. You might find you agree with them later on as you learn new information about that thing. And I think this all kind of sums up to just be kind to one another. We don't need the violence and, even just the arguing over things like politics. We all want the same thing. We all want for everyone to have the best life possible. We may not agree on the problems here, or even if we agree on them, we may not agree on the method to make it better. It's no excuse to be hateful to one another. We are only on this earth for a short time, and we shouldn't spend all that time spreading hate due to ideological differences. While there are bad people out there, we can be better and spread unity despite differences. That's all I got for you today. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you dislike it, that's fine, I guess. But please leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are on this, and share this video if you did like it. And until next time, I'll see you around. Democrats are the problem. Republicans are the problem. These are the things we constantly hear, and many people have convinced themselves one of these things. Try to argue with one of these people, and even a centrist will be labeled a communist or a fascist. It gets worse when identity politics gets into it. You can't be a Christian and vote Democrat. You can't be gay and vote Republican. We're so set in our parties that we won't even care about policy that helps the people of the country as long as no red representatives come from our area. I can't count the amount of vote blue and vote red posts I've seen this election cycle. This is easily the biggest and most divisive trend in our country, and with this election that is still going on days after the fact, with lawsuits and recounts about to happen, people are acting crazy. There's rioting, protest, and people just being crazy. This is due to a partisan divide in the country, and I think I know the solution. Either stop voting based on party or ban political parties. Everyone knows the argument for term limits, and I couldn't agree more on implementing them. It would get a lot of new fresh minds in and stop career politicians who just grab for power because one day they won't have it anymore. However, this won't stop the partisan divide in the country. It'll just turn into fighting over the new red guy stepping in instead of the same red guy you voted for since 1970. What we need is to not put people in a box with their beliefs. It's not a black and white situation. Believe it or not, there are gay capitalists out there. Also, get this, there are Christians that are for single-payer healthcare. Ideology of people is a spectrum, but we are forced to pick a side and deal with the consequences if people don't like the party we pick. I've seen some people who voted a specific way called the worst things because they picked the candidate whose policy most aligned with their beliefs. It's ridiculous. So what about my solutions to this? Well, stopping voting based on party is a good start. If we as Americans educate ourselves and really try to be better with picking based on policy, then that's a good start. Another good thing to note is not judging people on who they voted for, but having healthy discussions on policy and not finger pointing because you may not like something their candidate said. If you can begin to research policy and even have the rational reasons people believe certain things you may not agree with, it's a step in the right direction. You may find after some research that you still believe in certain aspects of your ideology, but may be surprised at the things you never knew the whole story of that changes your opinion. Be open to change and maybe voting for someone you never thought you would because they had a policy you actually researched and agreed with. You're not a bad person because you voted for a certain candidate and neither are those around you. I do try to vote this way every time I go to the polls, and my opinions have changed a lot over the years. I try to have my facts straight, and when talking about anything, I try to engage in discussion in the healthiest way possible. But it doesn't always work. Not one bit. People can be very stuck in their ways in many aspects of their lives. Living and voting partisan is one of those things, unfortunately. This is where banning political parties would come in. While political parties had a place at one point, they've become obsolete today. Information travels so fast that people running without parties backing them could get the word out pretty easily. Those running could utilize social media, crowdfunding, and old-fashioned signs to do this. I'm not saying they need to do all the work on their own, but they would be the one hiring managers and helpers for their campaigns, not having the party do everything for them. It would be their campaign, not some old people in Congress's campaign, with the candidate as the face for their ideology. Would this take time for people to get a proper way to campaign for this partyless modern era? Yes. I'm not saying the transition would be easy, but in the end, it would be worth it because we wouldn't have puppets for a party, but true candidates working for the American people. I have to admit, there would also need to be changes in how we narrow the candidacy to a reasonable amount of people for general elections, in all spots of the political realm. Our primary elections would either be ridiculously long or have to have specific standards to get on the ticket, but that isn't anything new. This would also affect how people vote. You would have to have an idea of policy to be able to vote intelligently because you can't just vote for all the people with an R next to their name. This would probably start having less voter turnout at first, but as people begin to take time to learn what the candidates believe, I think it would get about where it is now at the very least. This would also affect how branches of government function. Congress wouldn't be Democrats versus Republicans and all who vote or talk to the other side are traitors. We'd actually have productive discussions and real progress in policy getting through. The president would pick a VP who is like them or complements them to reach a wide voter base. And they wouldn't veto a bill just because it's from the opposite party, but because they truly don't agree with it. You would have Supreme Court justices that aren't partisan but want to uphold the Constitution. I'm not saying it would be sunshine and rainbows. I know there would still be arguments and people being, well, people. But at least we'd get somewhere in most cases. The biggest positive that would come out of this would be the fact that people wouldn't think of people negatively based on their party affiliation. You would actually have to have the conversations and learn what and why they believe. People would begin to actually have real conversations about politics and possibly even get somewhere in it. Yes, there would still be people who accuse and finger point due to disagreement on an issue, but there will be a lot more room for people who are civil to have good discussion on policy. I don't know all the details of how this would play out and how we would get there, short of a constitutional amendment, which wouldn't be easy, but would make it harder for Congress to just overturn the law. I do know that our current system relying on parties is broken and divisive, and I believe that we as Americans need to stand up and say we are done with the partisan bullshit. This is our country, not the Republicans or Democrats. Hey, welcome back to I Tell You What. As you can see, I am no longer an animated microphone. I decided to take things in a different direction. But if you'd like to still check out my first two videos, I would love it if you did so. You know, I did work hard on those. I just think that maybe they're not the best direction for my channel. So this video is going to be on what I believe that COVID has taught us. Because over this last year, I think we've all been through a lot, and we've all learned things about ourselves and about our country and our world, really, that we didn't know a year ago. So we're just going to get into that. So the first thing I want to talk about is that one thing that we have learned is that we are too dependent on the government, the media, and big tech. These are three entities that have essentially taken over our lives or taken over the way we see things. And they all seem to manipulate how we think. The government, we've gotten to where many people believe it's the answer for all of our problems, whether it be economic, health, or even morally running how we behave. And that's what's best for us, is to have the government do that. The problem with that is that people have seemed to have forgotten that we have freedoms and we need to hold on to those freedoms. And mostly these things that we've gotten to where we believe the government should be the sole entity running our lives is, it's been being told this by the media, and many times the media is going through big tech. When I'm talking about the media, I'm talking about mainstream news outlets. When I'm talking about big tech, I'm talking about things like Facebook and Google. With the media, we've gotten to a point that we believe a specific news source, no matter how much they bend, omit, or straight up not tell us the truth. Many times we've been lied to, or, lying by omission, because they want to fit an agenda. And this has been really warping how a lot of people see things, how a lot of people see how COVID has been handled. Some people say, oh, it's been great. Some people say, no, it's been terrible. I think, the answer usually lies somewhere in the middle, because when we expand our media consumption, we get the full truth in there by being able to shuffle out the lies by looking at multiple sources. And a lot of people aren't doing that. But the big tech is also a big thing to blame in this, because many times they are manipulating the algorithms in order to get a certain outcome. Now, I will say, sometimes they go off of your sole biases, but many times that's not the case. It's that they're telling you what you should watch. You don't tend to see this on alternate sites, but only on the ones that really want to tell you what to think. We've all gotten biases now that have been dependent on these three outlets: government, big tech, and media. Many times we believe, oh, this is my thoughts and my biases, but really you're going off of their biases, their agenda, their thoughts. And it's been causing a very intentional divide. And that divide has gotten so bad that we can't have civil conversations anymore. There's really no civil debates anymore, because we've gotten to where if you don't agree with me, it's simply because you're a terrible person, not because maybe we both want a great outcome at the end. We both want the best for the people at the end, but we all have different methods of getting to those results. But people aren't willing to listen to that anymore. People aren't willing to come up with that thought anymore that maybe they still want the best. No, I'm the one for the people and you're a terrible person. Because of this, we've gotten to where we're willing to do whatever it takes to win an argument. There's name calling, of course. Like we're schoolyard children, except to a very bad extreme. We've gotten away from you're a doo-doo head and to you're a racist. You're a fascist. You're a commie libtard snowflake. We've gotten to that point. There's even been times where people have been physically attacked or even just internet mobbed over an opinion, when really they're just saying, I want the best and here's how I think it would be the best for people. That's an open forum for debate. That's not them saying how terrible of a person they are because they don't agree with your ideology. Maybe they don't think your organization is as virtuous as you do. Maybe they're seeing the horrors of a movement that you're being blinded by. And I know no matter what side you're on, you're seeing it as your side is the good one and the other side is the bad one. And yes, I know those horrors that side is doing, and I know the great things mine is doing and things like that. But if we're just getting to that point where we're just willing to do whatever it takes to win the argument by mobbing a person on the internet and shaming them, and even if we see them in person, physically attacking them and calling them terrible things, we're not going to get anywhere. And it's a very sad thing that this kind of stuff has been going on for years where people are so dependent on it, but this year has just brought it up to another level and has really torn away the veil of the bias of our three overlords and where they want you to think and what they want you to do. Also, how bad we've gotten as citizens. We're better than this. We're in a civilized society. Yes, I know you may think things will be better if people would just go with your opinions. But that's what the open debate's about. It's about, I think what I want is better for the people. Now let's talk about it. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. It's not a racial thing. It's not an economic elitism thing. It's not a gender thing. It's a human thing. But enough with that. Let's move on. So the next thing is that there are people who are willing to give in to fear. We saw this since day one of the COVID pandemic. People are so willing to give in to fear. They're willing to give up their freedoms. They're willing to give up everything for their safety. And they're willing to let things go into shambles for their safety. I used to work for a medical supply delivery company. I would deliver things to people's houses. And there was a lady who hadn't left her house since March. And mind you, the last time I'd probably talked to her was maybe a month ago. She would not let anybody into her house besides our initial setup, and even then she was so afraid the entire time. And she got to where she's just so afraid of the world. It's one thing to be cautious, it's another thing to just be so terrified of the world that you forget to live. We need to see what the best solutions are going to be all around, not just what's going to make us all feel fuzzy and safe inside. Because when we give in to fear, we are more likely to give up our freedoms long term. And I think that we really need to look at this and really assess what the best course of action is, so everybody can still live our lives, not lose our livelihoods, but also stay safe. Which would lead me into the next one, because there are also people who are unwilling to have concerns. And there's nothing wrong with having concerns. But there are still people out there who still believe this whole thing's fake, which I can tell you from experience, this is not fake. I caught the pandemic a while back, and my family and I got through it. Well, afterwards, I would say for a healthy person my age, it's not as bad as it's made out to be. It's still real. It's still there. I was staring at it in the face as it ran its course. And these people are just set on that. Even if they believe it's real, they say, well, I have the right to do all this reckless behavior. Which I say, yes, you do technically have that right. And I would never want to strip away that right of yours. But as a rational human being, you should still want to do the right thing. And I know you feel like you're being oppressed and your rights are being stripped away because of this. But we still should do what is right. Take all the precautions that we can do. Take every precaution you are able to minimize the spread of the virus. But like I said earlier, we still do need to live our lives, yes. But following basic guidelines is a good start. And as the science brings out more information and the more we learn, which we have learned a lot in this time, like we have learned a lot, lockdowns are not as effective as we thought, things like that. Masks, while they have some effect, some masks are better than others, and in some cases maybe a mask actually isn't the best. It all depends on the situation. But even learning things doesn't mean we throw away logic. We don't take an extra step. Oh, well, lockdowns don't work. Well, so I'm going to go back to all my reckless behavior with no mask, and I'm going to go pack into a place like sardines. Well, no, don't do that. If you're a logical person, you won't do that. So I think we need to find a good balance between these people who are so living in fear and these people who refuse to have any concerns about it. We need to find that good middle ground. And we as a society need to do this. Not with coercion of our three overlords, as I'm going to continue to put it. But let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is, and this is just a single issue that I think needs to be talked about, but I think, especially here in the U.S., we need to work on our healthcare system. I don't think any healthcare system in the world was prepared for this. But I think in the United States, that the flaws in what I'm calling our middle ground system, which is a heavily regulated capitalist system with the safety net, the flaws in it just came right out. I think we need to find a better system, and we need to find a better way to do this. We still did manage to get a lot of production of equipment in good timing. The only way we could have been better is if we stock up on every single thing, expecting a pandemic of every single type of disease, which isn't a logical thing to do. But it doesn't mean our healthcare system didn't suffer. I've seen it plenty of times working around in this system. It needs work. I myself would rather have a heavily unregulated capitalist system. So just strip all the regulations away, minimal regulations, and let capitalism do its thing, bringing down prices and bringing up efficiency. Some people may have other thoughts on that. And I think there is a debate and there is a talk to have so we can figure it out. Because our system does not work the way it is. Heavily regulated capitalist healthcare doesn't work. I believe you need minimally regulated, or we need to look into other options. So I think it is time to have that conversation about our healthcare system. Next one is going to be a little bit of a positive one, I guess, especially if you're an introvert. We've learned how good of a thing personal space is. We're so used to being in these little petri dishes that we take for granted being in a nice healthy environment where we're not packed in together and not minding each other's space. This would be a nice thing to keep, even if it's still letting amount of people in the store who need to be in there, but people still mind their personal space. So if we can keep this, guys, it'd be great, because we've been really liking the personal space here, people. Personal space. Nice. So that's about all I got for you guys. My biggest thing with this is we still have a lot of work to do to improve things. And with the veil ripped off because of COVID, I think we now have the ability to do so. And I think that if we can work on the things that I had talked about, and I guarantee there's more, and if you can think of anything, put it right down in the comments below. And I think we can make our country better, and we can grow from this. And as a country and as a world, we will all be stronger in the end. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, hit like. Leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts on it. Share this video if you'd like. If you're watching on YouTube, share it out as well. If you're watching on any other platform, then thank you so much for watching. And I will see you all in the next video. Hey guys, welcome to I Tell You What, and this is a bit of a quick impromptu video. This is just about Firefox's, Mozilla's comments saying we need more than deplatforming due to President Trump being deplatformed pretty much across all social medias. I do think that he has actually recently started a Parler account, and my guess is he'll probably do some more alt tech as well, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It might mean get a lot more people on those platforms. Both crazy and not crazy. But it says we need more than deplatforming. And they are talking about, of course, the morons who decided to storm the Capitol building. Like, that makes sense at all. And I don't know why they would put this out now, considering all the deplatforming that's been happening throughout this year, last year, of course. but they are using this as a reason to say that it's needed. And to me, this does seem very politically motivated, like people on the left who work at Mozilla want reasons to get more people who politically don't agree with them off the platforms. Because you have to remember, most people who supported Trump, just like most people who supported Biden, are of pretty sound mind. Even Trump himself, I would say, is mostly of sound mind, although I would say he talks faster than he thinks at times. And I've looked back at a lot of the tweets, and I don't see anything he said that directly told people to do storming the Capitol. And even Snopes, who is they're left-leaning, whether you like it or not, they're left-leaning fact checkers. Irony, it should be neutral. Even said that he did not directly say that. But of course, people take things to extremes. You're always going to get people who take things to extremes. I could say I hate ice cream, and I could have followers out there who say we need to burn every ice cream shop. That's just going to happen. But now that I'm off that rabbit trail, so what they're saying, actions that need to get taken that go beyond just deplatforming Republicans and conservatives and people who aren't on the left. That is essentially the way I'm taking it, because it is only after this that they're saying that. But they're saying specific actions that must be taken, which would be on top of deplatforming, would be reveal who's paying for advertisements, how much they are paying, and who is being targeted. Commit to meaningful transparency to platform algorithms so we know how and what content is being amplified to whom and the associated impact. Turn on by default the tools to amplify factual voices over disinformation, and work with independent researchers to facilitate in-depth studies of the platform's impact on people and our societies and what we can do to improve things. So, there's a problem with this. And while a lot of it sounds, that sounds very nice, this is all going to take away from free speech. Here's the thing. The biggest freedom we can have is freedom of speech. If you cannot articulate your opinions, as long as you are not directly inciting violence, I say that specifically, directly inciting violence, your voice needs to be heard. Now, if you have directly incited violence in any way, shape, or form, then yes, you should lose your platform. Because we don't need you pushing people in a direct manner to commit violence on others. We don't want that. We want healthy exchanges. But people need to have the ability to be wrong. People need to be able to have wrong opinions, no matter how bad you think that opinion is. Okay? I am not into people I'm not into people being anti-gay. I think gays deserve all their rights. I'm not into people, not letting consenting adults who identify themselves as trans to not be able to live the life they want. Like people who don't want them to be able to live their life they want. I am against, people not letting an adult decide what they put in their body, like drugs. And I am against people telling other people what they can do with their money. I believe in freedom, and we need that freedom to be there. And like I said, unless you are calling for violence directly, If you say, if you are a very bad person, like a neo-Nazi, and you are saying anti-Semitic things, I do not like Jewish people because blank and blank and blank and blank and blank. And somebody does something very bad based on that, that's still not a direct call for violence. Hell, somebody shot John Lennon because he read The Catcher in the Rye. People will take things that are in their conscience or in their hearts, and the evils that are in them, and give any reason to do it. So if you were to deplatform someone, yes, because they actually said something hateful, but is not a direct call for violence, then you are willingly going to do that to people who you merely disagree with. And there are some things that could be useful in some ways, like it's a reveal who's paying for advertisement, how much they're paying, and who's being targeted. Okay, that does sound like it could be nice, but then you take away a lot of confidentiality. Now, I do like the idea of transparency, but I'd prefer more transparency in, who's buying things like politicians. Things like that, not just advertisements, because most advertisements, they're just gonna be a nuisance to most people. Unless they're a really avid follower of that person. Wanting transparency on algorithms, so we know how and what content's being amplified, that is just saying suppress things you don't like. Turn on by default the tools to amplify factual voices. That is saying I pick the facts, not you. That you do not have the capacity to actually find the facts. And with independent researchers, it's a thing where it's like, who's these researchers? Are they neutral, or are you just gonna work with researchers who agree with you and will give the opinion you want them to give? So, I know this is a bit of a scatterbrain video, and honestly, there's probably a lot of people on all platforms that are going to give a much better analysis of this. But I just kind of had to get it out on my system because I regularly use Firefox. It is my browser. I love that it values my privacy. But now I'm really starting to question whether or not I will stay using Firefox. And I guess it all depends on what they start to do. Because one person, where's the name? Yeah. One person can say whatever they want. And, it's not gonna affect the whole outcome of a company. But that one person could also have a huge impact on the company, which Mitchell Baker, I don't really know how significant he is in Firefox at Mozilla. But if he's high enough up, he can make a big impact on what that company does. But I'm going to say this. Mozilla, if you still value an open internet, if you still value privacy, if you still value the people who use your browser because they know you're not going to be doing the same slimy things that Google does, and if they're crazy enough to use Safari, Apple does, or if they're really crazy, Microsoft, that continually just treats them as easy advertisements, because they're gonna track everything you do and make sure everything's customized to you. And I feel like you guys haven't done it to nearly the same extent, because of course you all still need to make your money. But if you value your users, then you will not do any of this. You will keep your browser to the point where it allows still an open internet that allows the free exchange of ideas to all. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Hey, welcome back to another episode of I Tell You What. When we talk about political subjects in the United States, there are always two things we hear. We need to protect our democracy, and we are not a democracy, we are a republic. So, which is it? You'd think with how long we had our system that we would at least know that much. It seems that isn't the case though. So today we're going to try and answer the question, is the United States a republic or a democracy? Disclaimer, we are looking at the subject in a very broad sense, mostly just to conserve the time of the video. So if you know things that are much deeper than what I'm giving you, then don't be afraid to leave it in the comments below and just add to the conversation. So to start out, we need to get to the definition of these two terms. Merriam-Webster defines a republic as a government having a chief of state who is not a monarch and who in modern times is usually a president. A government in which supreme power resides in a body of citizens entitled to vote and is exercised by elected officers and representatives responsible to them and governing according to law. And also, a political unit such as a nation having such forms of government. A democracy is defined as government by the people, especially rule of the majority. A government in which supreme power is vested in the people and exercised by them directly or indirectly through a system of representation usually involving periodically held free elections. I understand after hearing those that nothing has really been cleared up. They seem very similar, but their differences will help bring clarity, so we have to dig deeper. First, we need to see different elements and protections that come with government systems. We also need to keep in mind that democracy comes in two flavors, direct and representative. This means that we need to keep this in mind when deconstructing them. First thing, rule of law. What laws govern the people? In a direct democracy, there are laws that were voted in by the people. In a representative democracy, you have laws that were set by representatives. And in a republic, you have laws set by representatives, but they must fall within limitations set by the Constitution. So how are these laws made and changed? In a direct democracy, they are direct votes made by citizens on the legislation and issues. So people have to go to the polls periodically and vote on different legislation and issues that are brought up to create laws. In a representative democracy, legislation and issues are voted into law by representatives who are voted in by the people. In a republic, legislation is voted by representatives into law, and the representatives are voted in by the people. However, constitutional amendments must have direct consent of the people. So with all these powers given, where are the limitations on these powers? In a direct democracy, absolute power is given to any ideal that has more than 50% of the population's support. In a representative democracy, the ability to vote out representatives who go against the will of the people is what limits their power. In a republic, all limitations to government power is set by the Constitution. So who do these limitations or lack of limitations protect? In a direct democracy, it protects the majority of people. In a representative democracy, it still protects the majority of people, but there are some checks and balances due to representatives being the ones who vote on the issues. In a republic, the minority of people are protected through the powers that are limited in the Constitution. The United States has a limited government set by the Constitution, with constitutions of the federal and the state levels, with representatives who vote to make laws on the federal, state, and local levels within the confines of the Constitution. So it's settled. We're a republic, right? Kind of. Technically, the United States is a constitutional federal republic, due to our emphasis on the Constitution being the absolute rule of law. There are also situations on the federal level where the minority will win over the majority due to the protections in the Constitution. This is mostly seen in our presidential elections. If you'd like to see a video on how our government affects how we do elections, then leave a comment down below. However, our state and local governments individually run more as representative democracies, albeit ones that still have their own individual constitutions. Each state and localities make their own laws that they see fit for their states and communities. We also have ballot initiatives in the individual states that are more in line with direct democracy due to citizens voting on them directly, hence the name. The highest profile ones lately have been the legalization of marijuana that has happened in many states already. This leads to a point that many states have laws that contradict federal law. Although they are not supposed to be able to do the same with the Constitution, which between us I see a lot of lawsuits coming up concerning the Bill of Rights, but that's just me. While the federal government can enforce laws themselves, they cannot force state and local governments to do so. Essentially, states mostly run as their own sovereign territories within federal government guidelines. So while we are technically a republic on a federal level, we still have individual democracies within our republic. To put it plainly, it's more complicated than we think. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is very bare bones as it can get with the information, but I hope you liked it, and if you have more things to add to the conversation, put it down in the comments below. I just ask that you keep conversations civil. If you like what I do here, you can follow me on Minds, and if you're watching on YouTube, check me out on Odyssey and BitChute. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, welcome back to I Tell You What, and when we talk about politics, meanwhile, in a representative democracy, so anyone who goes away from the will of the people, oh my god, my fucking cat. In a representative democracy, they are voted in by representatives in a representative democracy, the highest profile ones lately have been the legalization of marijuana. Hey guys, welcome back to I Tell You What, and today we're going to be going over a video made by Gardner Bryant, also known formally as the Linux Gamer, who talked about his thoughts on the Mozilla blog post that I had done a video on, but it was his take on it, and after watching the video, I just kind of want to go over a lot of his responses and his thoughts. Because there's a lot of ways I disagree with him, and a few ways where me and him probably have some common ground. I think he mostly just has the wrong solution for, in many ways, the right problem. In some ways, not so much. So, a quick recap. Mozilla made a blog post saying that deplatforming Donald Trump wasn't enough and insinuating that the internet must regulate what is going on, also known as anti-free speech rhetoric. So that's where all this is going to start. So let's get into it.
And while I am a fan of Firefox, I'm not going to let that impact my assessment of what Mozilla said here. Fact of the matter is, you can disagree with a position that a person or a company takes and not automatically make them your enemy by doing so.
He goes on to give an example about a company that he donates to, but doesn't always agree with from here. In some ways, he is right. However, there is a point where a company may cross the line for you, where you will either step back from supporting the company and see what they do, and even where the company does become, as he puts it, your enemy. You may support Chick-fil-A, despite their conservative views contradicting your own views, but you may not support Amazon because of how they treat their workers. It all just depends on your perception and what's important to you. From here, he gives a broad recap of events, such as storming the Capitol and deplatforming Trump, and then he tells what the Mozilla CEO said in the blog, which in my video, you'll see I did not realize that was the CEO of Mozilla, which does really reinforce my video there. But he got confused about whether or not it was the right post and didn't see anything wrong with it at first. However, the more he thought about it, the more he realized he did disagree with Mozilla.
Keep in mind that Trump and his co-conspirators in Congress and in the Capitol Police planned for armed and radicalized seditionists who, mind you, were equipped to take hostages, that attempted a coup against the United States Constitution and seat an emperor in the White House. This attempt failed because they weren't able to take hostages. If they had taken a hostage, things might have played out quite differently.
So this part's just a side note, but it is factually wrong. What this was a group of Trump supporters who broke off from the rally that Trump was having that day and did riot and did storm the building. While some were violent and were causing vandalism, most people involved were trespassing, which I condemn all of this. The accusations are not that he planned a coup, even though people keep saying this. The accusations are that he incited a riot and therefore the violent. However, there was no direct incitement of violence from the president. People heard what the president said and then took it in a way he did not intend. You can see before and after, the president did talk of peace. The president was telling people go home peacefully. He did not want the riots. He wanted a peaceful protest with his usual loudmouth, of course, being the center of it. Like I said, this was a side note. Let's continue.
Social media is exclusively a radicalization tool. It's a tool designed solely to maximize your engagement and addiction to the platform.
So this gets a big kind of. Social media is made to be addictive, so you'll use it more. However, it was not intended originally to be a radicalization tool, but some radicals do use it to do so. This doesn't make it a radicalization tool, it simply means it has the potential for radicals to reach out to people. There are plenty of tools with other purposes that can be used as tools for destruction, from cars to a hammer.
And the problem really becomes, if everyone's been radicalized and inculcated with these indoctrinations, then nobody's listening to each other and we don't have a country anymore.
So I do think it's kind of funny. He shows Trump supporters peacefully standing with signs to show radicalization. Plenty of things he could have used, like the January 6th riot or any of the other riots that have happened this last year. However, back to what he said, there is a point here, but the problem isn't that there is access to certain viewpoints, but that people won't listen to all sides of the argument. That is more of a people problem than it is a social media problem. Although, yes, I do agree, social media does tend to have biases and does tend to push things. But once again, it's all down to the person. From here, he gives extreme examples of radicalization, from Bernie supporters who were so against Clinton they voted for Trump, and vegans who do not feed carnivorous animals meat. This goes on for a few minutes, and I'm going to link his video in the description so you can see the whole context of what he says. The problem is that this isn't the problem that we're worried about. No matter what, there are going to be radicals. Why? People are crazy. Yes, when radical ideas directly incite, condone, and push violence, it becomes a problem. That's when law and order needs to be restored, swift and harsh. This is when organizations pushing this need to be dealt with, is when they are directly inciting violence. But if it is a person or an individual or a group of individuals who are misinterpreting things that are not direct incitements of violence, then it is the individuals who need to be dealt with. And in that same matter, swift and harsh. They need to be made examples of that law and order will not back down to them. But in order for people to see extremes, the extremes must be allowed to have their opinions said, no matter how crazy. If we cannot be incorrect, then we don't have a society with a free exchange of ideas.
And I know so many libertarians who are up in arms saying, sure, it might be a problem, but nothing can be done about this because freedom of speech, and these companies are our freedom of speech, which is insane to me.
It is not as insane as you think. Please refer to my last comment. So from here, he gives a few ideas of what he would do personally, and then later explains why. So I'm going to show you the what and then the why, so it will technically be chronologically out of order.
I am in favor of strong legislation that would make much of Facebook and other social media platforms, including YouTube, illegal. For example, certain UX designs that feature like and share buttons, link previews, personally tailored or algorithmically curated timelines, they would all be banned in my legislation.
So you would ban people being able to share and interact with information in a manner that the company sees as intuitive for their audience. I understand that psychologically this can all make social media addictive, but forcing companies to make interfaces a certain way will only keep them from taking risks and innovating to make things for their customers better.
Well, banning link previews would slow the spread of sensationalist and misleading headlines.
So with your point of misleading headlines, which is literally how all sites work, are you going to say Google or DuckDuckGo can't show headlines on their search engines? That shows a lot of misinformation. I mean, you should see all the CNN articles that pop up when you look up political news. Are you going to ban the use of screenshots on these article titles? I mean, there's also the chance that people will just add the title to the link post. So what have you accomplished there?
Similarly, prohibiting algorithmically curated timelines would prevent the companies from showing you content that's meant to outrage you.
So the problem of going off things that are meant to outrage you is that emotion is subjective. Well, there is content out there that may fight for an emotion. You can apply this to everything. Everyone is pushing for an emotion, whether you feel one or not. Saying it's because it meant to outrage me, therefore it can't be on the platform, would become an easy way to get rid of a lot of content. The biggest one that would suffer would be comedy, because they tend to tread the line between laughter and outrage.
I'd also ban advertising completely on these platforms. These companies have proven that they cannot be responsible enough to actually allow advertising on their platform. And finally, I would make providing free of charge accounts on these platforms illegal. If you want a Facebook or a Twitter or even a YouTube account, you have to pay for it.
This one really does get me a bit, because here you'd be forcing companies to change their business models. The thing you would be doing is suppressing information through a paywall, meaning these companies would have more incentive to suppress speech within their platform. This is not even accounting for smaller platforms such as Odyssey, which I know you are a huge advocate for. They wouldn't be able to do it because their user base is not as big as tech giants. For people who have accounts on multiple platforms, to try and get people on big tech to come to smaller platforms, they'd have to choose a big enough user base to make a living, or give up content creation and make it to be where it's something that they just make side money for, or just completely give up. You'd probably kill alt tech at that point.
outrage you. Banning advertising on these platforms is also a high priority, since they basically allow you to hyper target your preferred victim, and by victim I mean your audience, in a way that is deadly to democracy.
I don't see how it is deadly to democracy. More people are using services like VPNs and add-ons on browsers that contain their activity away from other sites. Yes, anything you do within a specific social media will be seen and advertised in accordance, including your demographic. But it's not always the case. During the last election, I got lots of ads from both sides, including people I really didn't agree with. I know that isn't always the case, but it happens. On top of this, we are literally advertised to all day, every day. Billboards, commercials, product placement in movies and shows we like. All this is there. And yes, social media and influencers online included. To say that this one in particular is a threat to democracy is ridiculous. In reality, the argument about the ads is better for how we should handle the companies or candidates making the advertisements over the companies that run them, so their users don't have to pay for the service.
If you want to target a sad, divorced, lonely, conservative-leaning white guy who once had a good-paying manufacturing job and is now either unemployed or underemployed, well, Facebook will charge you fractions of a penny for every eyeball of those type of person, and tailor your ads per user, and will even allow you to do A/B testing to find the most effective way to convert your preferred audience.
Like I said, yes, within a particular social media, you can have the algorithm work like that. We have the advertisers and the social media who do that, albeit imperfectly. I know plenty of conservatives who saw Biden ads and socialists who saw Trump ads. However, banning this doesn't stop data collection. It doesn't stop the advertising that's constantly thrown in our faces every day. It just says who is allowed to do it and where, turning influence on people's minds into a monopoly.
Finally, charging people for use of these platforms would change the incentive of the platform holder, changing it from keeping people outraged so they continue doom scrolling, and instead providing value to their users so that they continue to pay for the service.
I think you doubt human nature, but once again, you'd be forcing companies to change their business models. You'd be hurting the little guys who are clawing their way up, fighting a steep uphill battle already, while allowing the ones with influence to have it all. Once competition dies without the ability to monetize, or because people aren't willing to pay for the service, the big companies can just sit back and enjoy their monopolies.
All of these are entirely within the realm of possibility and the jurisdiction of the legislatures of the United States Congress.
Totally the comrade.
States Congress. And you know what? Even state legislators. If you agree with me on this, we need to actually get this in front of legislators. Let them know that people in the technology industry actually understand this stuff and know that they need to take action.
Most people in tech would simply want a more free and open internet, not government locking down elements of it to protect people. Also, unless you want to lock down internet, like a specific authoritarian company, which I will not mention by name, it would be hard to achieve, considering most of the big companies could easily move their location to a foreign server and continue business as usual. Gardner, I respect you a lot. I really do. Your content really helped me transition from Windows to Linux, giving me tips to make the experience much better. However, I cannot agree with you on this. There are things that need to be done, but the authoritarian way you want it done, I cannot get behind. If we are to help make the internet a free and open place where free speech reigns and the people are protected from predatory acts of social media, we need to have good solutions to do so. One that has always been a good one is to reform Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act of 1966 to protect the user. A good example of this was the Break Up Big Tech Act sponsored by Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard and Congressman Paul Gosner. I know we probably don't see eye to eye on the solutions, but I think me and you can say there needs to be something done. However, the way you want it done, I cannot disagree more. So thank you all so much for watching. If somehow this does reach Gardner, that would be awesome. If not, that's not the end of the world. but please no harassing them if you do agree with me. Check out his other content. He is a good creator, and who knows, he might even get you off Windows or Mac OS. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Race is a big issue here in the United States. Some people say that it matters, and others say that it doesn't matter. The thing is that race does matter to everyone in at least one place. It doesn't make you racist. It makes you more race conscious, let's say. And I'm going to be telling you exactly where that situation will be. But first, before we get into that, here's where most people don't or shouldn't see race. I'm going to put it right over here. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to where we all do see race. So imagine you're hungry. You're probably hungry right now, so it's pretty easy. You're driving along the road and you see a big sign that says Big Papa's Soul Food. And you're like, that sounds delicious. So you go in and you see a man standing there. It's got the tag that says Big Papa. You're like, oh, alright, that's Big Papa. And you notice he looks a lot like me. My guess is there might be a small minority of you that will just nope out of that restaurant. Most of you, though, would just be like, not what I expected. And you'll proceed to try the food anyway. Mostly just to be polite. Even though you're thinking, this guy can't make soul food that good. Now who knows? I can make soul food so good I could convert Richard Dawkins. But that's not what you think when you think of Big Papa selling you soul food. Quick side note, I have never made soul food in my life. I have no idea how to make any of it. But let's go with the example. This is because we all have ideas on what certain things are attributed to certain people. This isn't really our faults. This is things we have been trained to think over the years. All the years we've been alive, to be exact. There are plenty of white people out there who can make, all kinds of Hispanic, Asian foods and stuff. But our first thought is they cannot make it as good as somebody who is ethnically linked to that food. If you go into an Asian restaurant, you're a little off-put by the fact that a white person is staring at you. Or, heck, maybe even a black person is staring at you instead of an Asian person with a thick accent. These are things we have essentially been told our whole life, or things we just got used to our whole life. But that's the kind of the beauty about living in the United States, where people of different ethnic groups are starting to get into different cuisines of others. Yeah, I think food is the one place where really we think certain things, and there's nothing wrong with somebody liking food and making food of a different ethnic group. I'm sounding like a broken record at this point. That's just my thoughts. You think best fried chicken, you walk in, there's either gonna be a black person or a white person who sounds like Colonel Sanders. That's what you think when you think of that particular food. So I would say that is the one place all of us do care about race, because that is where it is ingrained in us the most. And here's the thing, guys. There's nothing wrong with seeing race, as long as it's done in the way of seeing someone as a human being and their race is a feature on the person. No different than the nose on your face, your eye color, anything like that. Race should just be seen as that, something that makes that person uniquely them, because it is a feature that is part of them. Anything on their face, body, personality, that's what makes that person them. Their race is part of them. You may see me as a white man. I hope you do, because, it's pretty obvious I am. But I may see you as Asian, Native American, black, all the other races and ethnic groups there are out there. And that's what makes us all so wonderful, is how unique we all can be and how different we all are. So despite us seeing race in this one situation, that every single person will always think this, no matter whether they admit it or not, it is part of what makes us us. So thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, hit like. Follow me on mines at I Tell You What. If you're watching on YouTube, check me out on Odyssey and BitChute. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, what's up? I just said I'd make this video. I originally was going to make it with a script, but I decided to kind of just go a bit off the cuff with this. The script wasn't working for me. So what this is a argument that I believe is a very bad debate argument. And so I'll just get right into it. The argument is you cannot have an opinion on a certain issue because you're not part of an affected group. I believe this is one of the worst arguments anyone can have in a debate. And there are a lot of bad arguments. I'm actually thinking of making an entire series on nothing but logical fallacies. Leave it down in the comments below if you'd love to see that. It'll be more scripted. Don't worry. And I'll have the research with me to do it. But I just believe that saying that someone can't have an opinion on something because they're not part of a group is just an easy out. You're saying that you're refusing to come up with the facts and data to debate their points. Why? Because they don't fit the group. Well, you're not trans, you don't get an opinion. You're not a woman, you don't get an opinion. You're not African American. You don't get an opinion. You're so-and-so, you're just another white guy. You don't get an opinion on any of this. It just is filled with resentment and an inability to actually formulate an argument. And of course I'm going to get a lot of hate, but one of the biggest ones that it's used for is the abortion argument. Well, no matter your opinion on this, the debate needs to be had. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man, the debate needs to be had. Many people say, well, this is a women's issue, it's about their bodies. But people who are on the pro-life side say, no, that is not the case. This is about the baby's life. The debate isn't about her body and the baby's body, when it's really more about where does life begin. Because depending on where we say life begins is where abortion would really be okay. That's kind of my thoughts on that part of the argument. But because I'm a man, people tell me all the time, you can't speak on this. You're a man. But the thing is, if I look and I research and I formulate my own moral opinion on it, what's the problem? What's the problem with us having the conversation? What's the problem with us comparing and seeing who has the better facts behind it? Very simple. They don't want to have the debate. And to be honest, I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to this. I have an opinion and I have thoughts on it, but I think there are probably a lot better authorities than I am on this. And people still won't even hear what I have to say on it. The thing is as a society, if we are going to make things work, if we're going to progress, if we are going to build our society, everyone needs to be able to say their opinion on any issue. It doesn't matter if it concerns them or not, because as a whole, everything concerns all of us. I know it sounds kind of like, what? How? Because we're all a society together. We built civilization together. Everything is going to concern everyone in some way, even if it's not directly. The best thing we can do then is to have the conversation. I could be totally wrong in my opinion, but I'll never know because you don't want to hear me. I could be totally right. You'll never know because you won't hear me. So, all I'm really saying with this is, let's stop with the bullshit and have the debates. Simple as that. Let's have them and let's go from there. So, I may have just made myself sound like a total moron, but if you still like this video, don't be afraid to give it a like. If you disliked it, well, I'm sorry that I disappointed you so bad. Not really. I have no remorse for it. And if you want to hurl insults at me instead of having the debate on it, then okay. I'll just not read it anyway, so I'll probably still read it, to be honest. I just won't care. But if you would like to have me do the series on logical fallacies, I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. And if I really get no comments, I'm doing it anyway because I want to. So there's that. If you want to get ahead on it, my place I'm starting is a book I have called Aristotle and an Aardvark Go to Washington. It's a pretty good book. I've read it a couple times. And it's a good place to start. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back, and I'm here with another video. This one is why I'm okay with billionaires. Sort of. So the whole thought about this one is I've had multiple conversations with people, many of them on the socialist side of the spectrum, where they continually say that it is morally wrong to be a billionaire. Now I've seen plenty of videos where the research is a lot more thorough than what I'm about to give you, so if you want to actually find good research on, well, the morality, no matter which way you swing, you should probably look at both sides of the argument. This is probably not the video for that. This is just more of an opinion piece on this. So I'm just going to talk about a few things that, show why I am okay with it, and then some things what I am not okay with when it comes to billionaires. So first, things I'm okay with. I am a capitalist. I believe in capitalism, and I believe that free markets are the way to prosperity. And with that, you get rich people. And capitalism allows for billionaires to exist. You've had this all the way from Rockefeller all the way to Bezos. And then before then, you still had people who were millionaires when money was not as valuable as it is. They'd probably be seen like we see billionaires anyway. Because of this, I don't think that people should be penalized or shunned for reaching that state, for being that successful. They shouldn't have people setting up guillotines out of their house. They shouldn't have people just shunning everything they do and saying, look what this billionaire is doing. Look at them just flaunting their money. Look how much money they make compared to their workers. The thing is, these people saw a need and they met that need and they built up a very successful business based on that need. And even if they weren't the first ones to do it, they found a way to do it better and therefore beat out the competition. I am okay with them in that sense, that if you can attain that success, you deserve it. You deserve to have that success. Another thing is that really your net worth is not equal to cash in your pocket. Many of these people are billionaires. They don't have those billions of dollars just sitting in a bank account. The way I kind of see it is, it's mostly theoretical money. It's assets. How much your house is worth, your cars. Using Jeff Bezos as an example, he owns 16% of a $1.5 trillion company. I may be off by a little bit, but roughly. So of course he's going to be worth a very high amount of money because his assets from owning Amazon is going to be worth billions of dollars. Now, what can he do with that? Not a lot, other than flaunt, hey, I am the richest man in the world. I'm not saying he isn't well off. Yes, he only brings in about 80 grand a year from his paychecks. Gets about, I think it's somewhere a little over $1 million in benefits, though. So he really doesn't spend much of his money. And yes, he can liquidate assets in order to buy things. But the value of those assets are not set in stone. Amazon tomorrow could go bankrupt, and Jeff Bezos will be worth nothing. That's why I think of it more theoretical money. Essentially, if he tried to liquidate all at once, someone high profile like him liquidating all of his assets would plummet the value of them. And he probably wouldn't get a fraction of what was actually there. Having a lot of assets makes you a billionaire. Okay, so what? Many people say, oh, pay your workers more. Look at all the money he could pay his workers with. He can't pay them with that money. It is not liquid wealth. It is not cash that he can just hand to his employees. Are there things he could do to help his employees more? Sure, there are other things he could do. That would be between him and his employees, or if his employees unionized, that would be between the unions and his company. Would not be for a government official to do. So now that I've told you the rough reason of why I'm okay with them, let's get into what I'm not okay with. So I'm not okay with censoring. So many of these billionaires are using the power they've gained to push political agendas. Many of them have huge market shares in their companies. Have huge market shares because of their companies in certain realms, such as social media, such as search engines, things like that. And they will push their political ideology on us. And they will try and silence anyone who opposes them. That is not okay. You should never be okay with somebody in the billionaire class, or anyone in general, even someone you know personally, from censoring your speech, censoring your opinions, censoring you from having a voice and having an opinion. Even though they may not all have the money directly, their companies have money, and their companies will use that to, second thing, lobby. So I am fully against lobbying anyone in government. I don't care if you're a union. I don't care if you're a big company. You should not be allowed to buy politicians in order to have them snuff out your competition or push an agenda you want. These people, these billionaires, may not always have the cash, like I said earlier, but because they're running very successful companies, they have the power, and their company has the cash to make sure that they continue to grow in power by buying politicians, to regulate out smaller upcoming competition to them. This is why I'm more worried about millionaire politicians. Well, let me be specific. Millionaire career politicians over a billionaire. Because a millionaire politician could only have gotten that way if their whole career has been in politics by a billionaire giving them that money, even if it's in a very soft way. I am perfectly okay with billionaires existing as long as they are participating in our free market, as long as they're not bribing our public officials. If you can reach that status without bribery, without censoring, then you deserve it. Now, somebody might say, well, our current ones never got there that way. Well, then why don't we take away all the barriers that have been keeping companies down and keep out the ability to buy politicians and snuff out your competition, and let's see what happens. Because you know what? If there is really no moral way to become a billionaire, and I am completely wrong on it, getting rid of the barriers, allowing our free market system to work as a free market where competition continually keeps everyone in check, and keep out the ability to buy politicians, then if I am wrong, then hey, we won't have any billionaires and you don't have to worry about anything. But if I'm right, billionaires will continue to exist, success will continue to grow, and more people can attain higher financial status, because there will no longer be the barriers of crony rich people buying crony politicians. I mean, personally, let's just kick out the ones we got and kind of start fresh with term limits, but that's my opinion on that, and that's a whole nother video. So what's your opinion on it? Do you think it's okay for billionaires to exist? And if so, are there little caveats like me? Or do you just completely think I'm wrong and think billionaires should never exist? Hey, put your comments down below. Let's have a conversation. So thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, hit like. If you dislike this video, well, go f*** yourself. I'm kidding. Kind of. So, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be starting my series on logical fallacies. I'm going to try and keep these videos short and to the point, so if you do want to see it more in depth, I would recommend you check out some of the sources down in the description below, and every episode I will have these sources linked to that logical fallacy, and I'll also be linking an Amazon link, or maybe another bookstore, maybe thrift books. I like thrift books. I'm going to link to this book, Aristotle and Aardvark Go to Washington. There's a lot of other good books out there on logical fallacies, and this is the one I really like. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. The best way to describe this fallacy is, I meant to do that. Okay, there's more to it than that. What happens is one will reframe a situation in order to say that an outcome was intended all along, or they will focus on a cluster of data in order to get a desired outcome. Essentially what they're doing is coming from the idea of shooting the side of a barn and then drawing the targets onto the barn after the fact, showing that you have a bullseye every single time. This tactic can be used to deceive you by limiting the data and by changing the standard in order to make it as if everything happened the way they wanted it to, even if they did not plan it, nor if all the data does support it. There are a lot of people in the political sphere, in mainstream media, and even on internet news that like to use this tactic. And I'm not going to mention any names. Get down there. I said I'm not mentioning names. But it is used across the board and across the political spectrum. So essentially, this tactic can be easily overlooked if you aren't looking into claims, both in data and in anything the person had said previously. So it's good to always look into the claims as much in depth as you can, because unlike some people who say to just do a quick Google search, everyone knows that even that can be quite deceptive. You should always try and look into claims in as much depth as you can to make sure that they are not trying to use this fallacy on you. So there it is, just a very quick overview of what the Texas sharpshooter fallacy is. Like I said, you can check out some of the sources. I'm going to link down in the description below. You can also check out Aristotle and an Aardvark Goes to Washington, or many of the other great books that go over logical fallacies. And thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've been kind of off for a bit, and I'm trying to figure out ways I want to redo how I do videos, but for now I'm going to have to keep doing them like this, and I need to start getting back in the habit of making them. What prompted this though is I just see so many things that try and justify censoring free speech. I see a lot of people saying, well, no, we just want to get out the hate speech. We just want to get out the fascists. We just want to get out the Nazis and all the other white supremacists. We're not we're not against free speech. We're just against hate speech. Well, here's the problem with that. Once you censor speech, keep in mind, I'm saying this to the limit of direct calls for violence. That is the only place where free speech ends, because you are giving a direct incitement of violence, and therefore you should be held accountable for the violence you directly incited. So, you tell someone to go punch a Jew, and they go punch a Jew, and say, you incited them to do it, well, guess what? You should be held accountable. That's just one example, but you get where I'm going with that. So, free speech needs to never be infringed, and a lot of other countries seem to have taken it for granted because they do limit things you can say. But here in the United States, I think we have really valued free speech, at least up until now, that people are starting to want to censor free speech. It is our most important right. This is why we also have the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment protects that First Amendment right. We need to be able to say things even if it's wrong. We're seeing so much censorship now. We're seeing people being censored for saying things that just go against the grain. YouTube will censor people for having certain viewpoints or saying things that are a little out of line. But to me, I don't think it's right, because people need the ability to be wrong. That's how you change minds, is by people being able to express wrong opinions and then engaging in debate over that opinion. If, I have an opinion that is very wrong on a moral level, such as maybe someone does have some racial animosity towards others, they can't have their mind changed if they're told that they will be put in prison or even just jail or fines, anything like that, for expressing their opinion. Then they just hold it inside of them and just hold that resentment. You're not ending the hate, you're just bottling it up. So, the most effective people who change the minds of those who have those wrong opinions have done it through conversation, through debate. There's a musician, what's his name? I'm pretty sure it's Daryl Dixon. Let me double check real quick. I'm gonna pull it up. Got the last name wrong. His name is Daryl Davis. See, that's why I like to fact check myself. So, Snopes has proved that I was somewhat correct. But anyway, Daryl Davis. I'm glad I fact checked that. But Daryl Davis has befriended people in the KKK. And he has changed over 200 minds. I don't know the exact figure. I just remember the last interview I saw him talking to someone in. It was over 200 people got them out of the KKK. And that is a astronomical number for the KKK. Okay, it's not some giant organization like it was way back in the day. They are down to maybe a few thousand people. So, him being able to change so many minds through conversation and befriending shows the importance of free speech. Other countries may censor those hate speeches, but they're not changing minds. They're not fixing the culture. All they're simply doing is internalizing it. It's just parents complaining in front of their kids, and that hate passes on to their children. But they know they have to keep it internally. You're not changing minds. Free speech is also how we tell our governments what they're doing wrong and why they're wrong and why they're deceiving us. You can't have that in societies without free speech. When a government begins to oppress people, they want to take away their speech. Look at what is happening in Hong Kong. There were people on their streets waving American flags, singing our national anthem, because they saw us as a symbol of freedom, especially for their right to free speech. But their authoritarian government decided to snuff out their voices. We need to understand there's always going to be bad people. There's always going to be hate. But you're not going to get rid of it by just threats of going to the police or going to jail or being censored. You're not going to change minds. You're not going to change people's opinions on transgender people by telling them that by law they have to use certain pronouns. Listen, if you're trans, I think you have every right to live the life you want. But not everybody is going to be that way. There are people who are just assholes. Simple as that. There are people who just may not understand. And it is through conversation and through engaging in our right to free speech that you can change minds. It is through our right to free speech that we can change our government. It is through free speech that we can make life better for everyone. Because without it, it is only the elite who get to make the decisions. It is only the elite who get to drive our country in ways they want. Because if they can keep you from expressing your opinion, they have taken away everything from you. Without free speech, the rest of the Constitution means nothing. Without free speech, your human rights mean nothing. Because it all can be taken away. If you don't have the right to free speech. So, thank you all for watching. This was something different. I really don't like not having at least a format of where I'm going to go with it, so this was all off the cuff. And I'll even leave my little blunder in there. I'm really not going to do much editing. Quick color correction, throw it in, and that's it. So, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you want to. I'm going to try and do what I can to start making videos a little more regular again. And even if it's just off the cuff stuff like this that I just talk, quick edit, and post. So I will see you all in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the movie WALL-E. So the reason I kind of got inspiration for this was I watch it on repeat for my kids, and when I started looking at it more, I could see many ways that people might think that the movie is very anti-capitalist. So I kind of wanted to look into the subject more and then give my thoughts on it. So if you haven't seen WALL-E, which if you haven't by now, I don't know what to tell you. You're just going to get spoilers because it's been long enough. The movie was released in 2008 by Pixar and produced by Disney. This was before Disney acquired them, if I remember right. So what happens is there is a mega corporation named B&L, by and large, and they run everything. And because of this, people become hyper materialistic and begin to just flood the world with garbage. So in order to combat this, B&L sends all the people on a 5-year cruise in space. Multiple ships are sent. And 700 years later, no one has come back yet because the world is still overrun with garbage. And only one of the robots that were supposed to be cleaning up everything is left. The rest have all broken down. This is WALL-E. WALL-E then sees a probe come down from space that leaves another robot named Eve. And she is looking for plant life. And WALL-E just so happened to find that very day a plant that he put in a boot. Now, she didn't know this. He follows her around for a couple days because he's just awestruck with her. And then eventually shows it to her. And they both go back to the main starship called the Axiom, which has a captain but is mostly just run by the autopilot. Come to find out, the CEO of BNL declared the Operation Cleanup, as he called it, a failure. So he said for everyone to just remain in space, and told the autopilots for all the ships to not return to Earth, no matter what. So the autopilot continues to try and sabotage them, trying to get the plant where it needs to go, so that way the ship knows to go back to Earth and allow people to repopulate Earth. And how you'd put it, eventually they do. They get it in there. Wally nearly dies because somehow they gave a wheel a taser, and then he tried to crush him as well. But in the end, Wally and Eve are happily back on Earth, and he's back together, and it assumes that people begin to repopulate and live in a cleaner world again and try and be better than the last. So that's the best I can come up with for a synopsis. I'm not really good at summaries. I will put the Wikipedia article in the description below, so that way you can get a much better synopsis, or just go watch the movie. One of the two. So at first glance, many people would assume that the movie has some very anti-capitalistic and environmentalism messages. The environmentalism I would definitely agree with, but the relationship between the movie and market economies or capitalism, I think, has a lot more depth to it than just simply a hatred of capitalism. So here's what I mean. First, we're going to start by defining capitalism. According to Merriam-Webster, capitalism is an economic system characterized by private or corporate ownership of capital goods, by investments that are determined by private decision, and by prices, production, and the distribution of goods that are determined mainly by a competition in a free market. So why is this definition significant? Because of the part that says competition in a free market. So in order to have a truly free market, you have to have multiple companies working, trying to compete and one-up one another. If one corporation just keeps running everything, that's not really the description. Because in a free market system, a single corporation running everything would not be able to sustain the power, because other companies would find ways to do things better, cheaper, faster, or all of the above, and undercut their market share, and eventually destroy them through competition. You can see this a lot in the tech industry right now. For years, the dominant processor was an Intel processor. And AMD was still there, but Intel had such a dominant market share that they didn't really have to worry about competing with AMD. They were the processor to get. AMD was for people who couldn't afford Intel, which you really had to not have been able to afford Intel. So what happened? Well, in about 2016, if I remember right, was when AMD unveiled their Ryzen lineup. And this immediately brought competition back to the market. And while Intel still does hold a majority share right now, they are slowly losing their share to AMD and constantly getting one-upped in innovation, which is why more companies are adopting AMD processors. And Intel now has to play catch-up in innovation. A more relevant example that more people will understand is in big box stores. So, for years, we had Sears and Kmart as two big names in big box stores. Now they've pretty much gone out of business, or if there are any left, which I'm not even sure about that, they're shadows of their former selves. The Kmart and all the Sears stores around where I live are all gone. Right now, Walmart had been slowly losing market share as well to places like Amazon. Now, Walmart has been working on innovating and really working on their online store to try and keep up, so that way they do not become another Kmart or Sears. And that is where competition does help you, because then it forces you to innovate. But Walmart is not the dominant company that it used to be, which is the point. So if what we have in Wall-E is not truly free market capitalism, what is it? Well, this would be a type of economic system called corporatism, which Merriam-Webster defines it as the organization of society into industrial and professional corporations serving as organs of political representation and exercising control over persons and activities within their jurisdiction. So what does this mean? It means everything revolves around corporations. Corporations that, more importantly, have bought political influence, or have simply taken over politics, essentially. We can see this a lot today because we see lots of corporations who lobby government and constantly get involved with government actions. We have social media companies saying that they want to be in on creating laws for social media or internet laws, internet regulations. I knew I'd get it eventually. And then you have all these places just making sure that they can hold their market share or even grow it. They do this through regulations and high taxes that they are able to pay, but other companies may not be able to. Smaller companies that are just starting to really rise up the ladder. So what this creates is it creates a bubble that the big corporations get to sit in and then never have to worry about being dethroned through free market capitalism, through healthy competition that should be in the market. This is the kind of thing you see in Wall-E. That is the only way BNL could have risen to such power to where they took over the entire world, to where people regarded the CEO of BNL more than they did their own president or leader. So what would be ways to counter corporatism? Well, the only real ways to do it is make the market freer, shrink the government size, and stop allowing big companies to buy government influence. That would really be the only way to stop corporatism in its tracks. Unfortunately, here in the United States, I do see us starting to veer towards corporatism because of all the companies that are buying influence. So, really, Wall-E shows us exactly why we need a free market as opposed to a corporate-run market. We need those small companies. We need those mom and pop shops. We need companies that are going to get large and take on the big guys. But the only way to do that is to truly have the market be free. And I know I sounded like a broken record, but I'm really trying to drive home the point. Because until we make sure that big companies are kept in check, then things are only going to get worse. And to people out there who may be watching this who are socialist, and you say, well, billionaires shouldn't exist anyway, which I do have a video on that, which I will place right up there. If you truly don't think they should exist, then you should not want them owning so much market share through buying politicians. Because if you think there's no true way for them to exist, then the only way they could have reached that is through the corruption and through the buying of politicians. So either way, this is something that both capitalists and socialists should be able to get on board with. So that's all I got on that. Really, I do love the movie Wall-E. Like I said, I watch it with my kids all the time. And I think it has a lot more deeper messages than that people can get. Those ones I think are just the ones that are the most low-hanging fruit, is the best way to put it. But thank you guys again for watching. If you liked the video, please hit like. Please subscribe if you liked it to see more videos. And follow me on my social media. And I will see you guys in the next video. Because if you think there's no true way for them to have existed, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna go over my thoughts on the Steven Crowder and H3H3 debate that went on. Honestly, there's a lot more channels that went over it, a lot bigger channels than mine. So I'm gonna try and keep this as brief as possible, just because there's a lot a lot more input from people who are a lot bigger influencers. Because I have like 3 people subscribed to me. And it's whatever. So this all started when Crowder made fun of H3H3. Let's just call him Ethan, that's his name. Made fun of him for saying you don't have to think about it concerning CDC guidelines. So it turned into a pissing contest back and forth a little bit, and Crowder said, no, this is my final one, I'm done, but if you want to have a debate, contact me. And he got contacted, and Crowder even put up the screenshots. If I remember, I will put them up about here. So they talked back and forth and set up a time and date. And then, come the day of course, Crowder released the entire footage. So, this is where I'm going off of. But come the day of, instead of actually debating him, Ethan pulled a fast one and got it all set up, and then said, oh yeah, this is the guy you're gonna debate. And his name was... Sorry, I had to actually look it up. Sam Cedar, who I have never heard of up to this point, and never even hear people referencing the guy, so I'm not sure who he is. I know he has 1 million subscribers, but a low viewer count. Whatever. But he shows up, and Crowder then starts to kind of go off a bit. And it just becomes a shit show from there. Crowder's pissed because he was lied to, which I can understand that. I mean, he was told he was going to debate Ethan, and he got Cedar, who apparently people avoid like the plague because he just tries to score points with debates. I haven't looked into it, though. I'm not sure how true that is. So, fact check it. And put it down in the comments below. That's just things I have heard off of sources that I get it from. And a lot of people tried to say that Cedar won because Crowder got mad, said some things, and then just cut the call off. And watching the video in its full context, that is not really the way I get it. Like, I can see why some people would say, well, why didn't he just go through with the debate and just do it? But the rationality he said was he won't debate on a lie, which I can totally understand. I think in this case, Crowder was pretty much in the right, although he could have reacted a lot better. And Ethan could have not been a slimy dickwad and actually went through with the debate, because even if he lost, he would have still looked like someone who would stand up to someone who's a much more seasoned debater and still tried his best. I'm pretty sure Steven would have even let him have notes in front of him. Like, that would have been better than nothing. So, like, if someone gets challenged to a debate and you agree to the debate, the better thing to do is just do the debate. Like, even if you get stomped on, at least you did it. At least you tried. At least you didn't pull weaselly bullshit that he did. And, no matter what your thoughts are on it, that's kind of what it comes down to. Crowder was lied to. Crowder was lured in to a quick little, a lot of people refer to it as a bait and switch. I guess that is the correct terminology. I am not a linguist or anything. I was a C student in English, so, that's not much coming from me. But it should have never came out that way. And I know a lot of people don't like Crowder's reasoning, on top of he was lied to, saying that, he doesn't have nearly the same size audience and stuff. But if I were to try and debate Hassan Piker, I doubt he would accept it, because I have 3 people subscribed to me. And I understand it's not the same scale, but you get the point. You can't debate every damn person who wants to debate you, so you have to pick the ones who are going to be worthwhile. So it may just sound like I'm just jerking off Crowder, but I just sincerely think he's in the right with this, and that people need to acknowledge who is in the wrong in this. Because the last thing I'd ever want to be is lied to on who I'm debating. Not sure I'd ever do a debate. I think I'm a little hot-headed for that. I know I look calm on this, but that's because I do a lot of good cuts. Not so good cuts, I guess. So yeah, this one's kind of ending on a weird note, but that's my thoughts. Like I said, if you want a really good analysis of it, a lot of other people have had much better analysis. Or if you just want to watch the video in its full context, I would say check out Crowder's channel. And on his Crowder Bitch channel, he has it in the full context. The sound check right before everything started, leading up to after he cuts it off. So I think you can't really get more sincere than that. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, hit like. Please share the video and subscribe. And if you want to check out more of my content, just look right here and leave a comment below. If you'd like to see some more content, leave a comment below with any suggestions for content you'd like to see. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm just gonna give a few of my thoughts, because there's plenty of videos out there that are gonna go a lot more into depth. Wow, that was awful. Concerning what the fuck? Center for Disease. Concerning CD. Wow, I'm fucking this up. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm just gonna talk briefly about my thoughts on the idea of God. And this is just my thoughts overall. As a disclaimer, I am a Christian, so this is coming from a Christian point of view, although I am not what I consider a traditional Christian. I haven't been to church in a while, better part of a year, essentially since COVID started. I kind of feel like I need to start going back again, if not for anything, for my kids, because it'll at least give them some way to socialize, because they're not old enough to be going to school yet. They're 1 and 2. And I really haven't been reading my Bible much lately. And the last book I read was Mere Christianity, and that was 3-4 months ago. Well, last Christian book I read, at least. I did go to Bible college from 2010 to 2012. So that's kind of like the background on there. I have multiple books on my bookshelf that are all pertained to Christianity. I have a few on my Kindle, which I hardly use anymore. It's something I still do periodically. Try and refresh myself on. So, to my thoughts on it. So, of course, obviously, I've already told you guys I'm a Christian. So, I do believe in the existence of God, and I do believe in Jesus himself and his death and resurrection. However, my problem a lot of times with a lot of ways, modern Christians, or Christians in general, I guess, is they've always looked at the text, especially in the Old Testament, as literal. And to me, that's a big problem, because I feel like a lot of the things written are for people who are simpler, who didn't have the modern scientific progress we have today. And I feel this has made a lot of Christians resent any type of scientific leap that they feel challenges their conception of God. They've gotten into this bubble where you have to take the Bible literally, every single word literally. You cannot see certain things as stories that were meant to teach a lesson, or for something that was made to simplify an event. Genesis 1 and 2 are usually the big ones people talk about. Genesis 1, just gives a very rough idea of the universe. I've even had an atheist tell me before that if he was going to explain the creation of the universe, or the start of the universe, in the way he would put it, I guess, to a child, he would use the account on Genesis. Of course, he would take God out of the equation, but the story itself gives a good, simplistic explanation. Whether or not you take the actual timeline as a literal thing. And I believe that a lot of Christians have just, they've let themselves essentially listen to only their pastor and how their pastor puts it. Pastors who, many of whom I respect, will say, no, the world is 6,000 years old. And they say this in 2021. And I disagree with them in every way on that account. Science has proven this otherwise. And I know they tend to have their own kind of explanation. Like some say the flood of Noah, the pressure of the water messes with carbon dating. But to me, I don't really believe that. I believe all that those were stories to teach a specific lesson. I don't think you start getting into history till well into the Bible, and then even then it still has some mythological intertwining with it. And I think it's fair to say there is mythology within the Bible. And also, so I think scientific accounts don't necessarily disprove God because of that. Because of my thoughts on how Christians perceive the historical timeline. And on top of that, I also don't really disprove everything in every religion. I think even C.S. Lewis said it in Mere Christianity, which, like I said, I just got finished reading a couple months ago. He said, like, you have to, he said that when you're part of a specific religion, in this case Christianity, you have to see that religion as the ultimate truth, but other religions still have elements of truth to them. I mean, C.S. Lewis is considered one of the I guess great scholars, Christian scholars of the 20th century, at least the early 20th century at least. Some people may disagree with me, but considering his books are still read and still highly regarded about 100 years later, I mean, 80 to 100 years, I guess, it says a lot about how people respect C.S. Lewis. And even if someone like him could say that, I think more Christians should be okay with that. Because if you start looking into other religions, some people are like, you're going to open yourself up to demons and stuff like that. I think my brother-in-law actually dealt with that. People saying that he's going to be opening himself up to demons because he was reading into Buddhism. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is truth in every belief. I just believe my personal beliefs are the ultimate truth. And I'm always trying to evolve my beliefs. And hopefully I can start getting myself back on track to kind of build my foundation back up and build it stronger than ever before, and still have those convictions that I have and make them better than they ever were. And believe me, there are a lot of things I disagree with, even within my religion. I think a lot of things are taken out of context, and a lot of things that were mythological to teach a lesson shouldn't be seen as a historical event. So I do believe Christians, we have a lot of work to do on, I guess the best way to put it is making a better argument for our faith, and making the church itself better and more loving and accepting, because I believe the church has gone downhill a lot. The church as a whole, worldwide. And I think there's a lot of things we can do to be better. There was some big church reforms throughout history, And I think we're hitting that point. And we just gotta get some very stubborn people to shift with that. And then hopefully we can get new lessons we learn from the Bible and new lessons we learn as Christians in our daily lives because of that. So, I know my videos tend to be political. I try to make some educational ones, and I need to get back on those. But I hope you guys like this video. I'm hoping to eventually have more religion-based videos, but I may start a separate channel for that, and I may wait till this channel actually gets a good audience before I even think about that. But if you'd like to see more videos like this, please leave a like, please leave a comment, leaving your own opinion on God, whether you believe in God, whether you not, maybe you believe in a different God than I do, maybe you totally disagree with me. Maybe if you're a Christian and you are a literalist and you think I am insane. Tell me down in the comments below. Like this video, share this video, follow me on social media, and I will see you guys in the next video. guys, welcome back to the channel. So I have been very hesitant on releasing this video, mostly because I was a little bit lit when I recorded it. Well, it's actually two separate videos, but I'm just going to mash it into one. But if you would like to see more videos like this, it's essentially drunkenly reading news articles. Not too drunk, luckily, but still a bit lit. So if you'd like to see more like this, I can probably do it once in a while. If not, you know, at least I put this one out there, so enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of I Tell You What. I'm a little buzzed right now, so we're just gonna talk about how Citizen Kane lost its 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is great. I love this. So it lost its 100% rating because an old review popped up unexpectedly, where it dropped to 99%, although it should be a lot lower. Citizen Kane is really not that good of a movie, and I know a lot of film critics are gonna be telling me otherwise, but they're full of shit. Okay? Citizen Kane is not that good of a movie, and saying anything else is just bullshit. It's alright to learn like film techniques from it, but it's not that good of a movie. I went to film school. Well, I have a communications degree in filmmaking, so it's kind of like film school, just not film school. Yeah, I know, film degrees. But, yeah, I should have just learned this shit online. Yeah. But after 80 years, a review pops up that says, it's interesting, it's different. In fact, it's bizarre enough to become a museum piece. But its sacrifice of simplicity to eccentricity robs it of distinction and general entertainment value. Yes. It's not an entertainment, and it's not an entertaining film. It's not entertaining at all, in fact. It's great to learn film techniques from. It's great to learn the history of film from it, but it's not a good movie. It should be lower than 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is why I use IMDb. I mean, IMDb Citizen Kane. IMDb puts it at 8.3. And Rotten Tomatoes, Citizen Kane has a 60. Let's see. Critics put it as 99%. They put it at. Why would critics put it at 99%? It's considered after this, it's considered the third best movie of all time. Behind, where is it? I'll find it. Here it is. behind It Happened One Night, which I've never seen, and Black Panther. Actually, I'm real behind the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I actually haven't seen Black Panther either. So I need to see those two movies. But it says it's the third best movie behind those two. It should be a lot farther back than that, because it's not a good movie. I watched it in film school. It's not a good movie. It was history of film class I watched it. Okay? It's almost as bad as Birth of a Nation. Almost. I mean, the idea of the KKK just kind of being the saviors of the country is a lot worse than Citizen Kane. But Citizen Kane is bad. So it makes me happy that it loses a little bit of rating, but I'm hoping it loses a lot more, because it's not a good movie. It's not a perfect movie. It's not the perfect movie. And it is not the best movie of all time, despite what any critics say. So, thank you all for watching, and if you like this, hit like. Maybe I'll drink a little more to do more videos like this, but if not, hit dislike and I will be sober whenever I do videos, or maybe only just have one drink in me. Alright, thank you and have a nice day. And I'll see you in the next video. So, I'm still a bit lit. Wait, let's start this over. So, I'm still a bit lit, and this. Okay, so this is from the Daily Wire, but I've seen this on some other stuff as well. Where someone said that Elon Musk needs to burn because he did an okay sign during SNL. I haven't seen the SNL skit, but I know for a fact that doing this is okay. Literally okay. It's literally the word okay. But you're calling Elon Musk. Yeah. There's the tweet right there. You're literally calling Elon Musk a Nazi because he's saying okay. This is not a white supremacist sign. This is okay. Everyone can do this sign. White supremacist is arms straight out and fingers like this. Okay? Everyone wants to know what that is. That is a Nazi sign. That is the literal, like, Hitler going Zin Heil. I don't know what the fucking word is right now. But saying okay is not a Nazi sign. Okay, guys? You get this? It is not a Nazi sign. Elon Musk is telling you okay in a skit, but you're too woke to understand that. Like, what the hell, guys? What the hell? It's an okay sign. When the shit all started with the Covington kids saying it, going, during their basketball games. And some know-nothing comedian, Kathy Griffin, who is like a nobody, like I can't even remember the last time she was ever relevant, was like, it's white supremacy. No, it's not. It's okay. Literally. It is the literal sign for okay. Hey! You just, like, fell down and scraped your knee. How are you? But no, you all gotta call it a Nazi sign. You're all morons thinking it's Nazi sign. If any of you all legitimately think that. So, yeah. Elon Musk not doing Nazi sign. He's saying okay, you morons. So, thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. And I probably look like a moron the way I'm doing these, but I lit. Yeah. See you in the next video.